Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Parx Racing here on Saturday. It is the 23rd of September 2023. Gonna look at almost all the stakes races on the program from Parx. You'll see why in a second. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Get 5 for more selections for race courses around the world, and I mean around the world. Next week in particular, with all those Breeders' Cup final prep races, next weekend's going to be a good weekend of racing, so I hope you join me for my previews. You have good racing here in New York, you have good racing in Kentucky, good racing at Santa Anita, good racing at Laurel, which just goes under the radar, and in the UK you have some great racing also. So and you have the Arc next week too, which I keep forgetting, so it's going to be an incredible weekend of racing. But this weekend, there wasn't a really big race other than the Pennsylvania Derby, which is a good card, but there was a decent card at Aqueduct today. But the problem is we're getting a monsoon of rain here in New York City and all up the East Coast. So forecasted 1 to 2 inches of rain with heavy winds. So this card in particular at Parx, we're gonna look at all the stakes races except the turf races. They're gonna probably get rained off the turf and run on the main track because I can't see them running these turf, especially that turf sprint on this on a very soft turf course. This turf course is already chewed up. Don't see them chewing it up even more, or they're waiting for disaster. So we won't look at the turf races, but we'll look at the dirt races. But it's a shame that the best card of the year from Parx, and they get probably one of the worst days of weather you get all year, but we just have to carry on. But it sucks here for me in New York. I was going to actually go to Aqueduct today, even if it was going to rain. It was I love going to the racetrack when it rains out, especially here in New York. People forget how to bet, it seems, and then you can find a price in some of those races. But you didn't want to find a price today. The dead rail at Aqueduct, very Parx Racing, of course, Philadelphia Park, dead rail. But let's get back to the Pennsylvania Derby card. We're going to look at the dirt stakes races 6, 7, and then 10, 11, 12, 13. Didn't even look. Is race 10, 11, 12, 13, is that pick 4? Let's see right now. That is a part of a pick 5. So we'll play a pick 5 or a pick 3 ticket in some of these races. We'll decide when we get to there. But let's get to the 6th event from Parx now. It is the Plum Pretty Stakes, going for a $100,000 purse, race for PA breds, fillies, mares, 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 9 horses going 1 mile and 70 yards on the main track. I'm going to take the 9 horse Morning Matcha. I'm going to go 9257 in the superfecta. 9257 Super, top selection 9 horse Morning Matcha, 4-year-old filly by Central Banker. Robert Reed trains. Paco Lopez gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the lawn here at Parx, a mile 16th in the Mrs. Penny Stakes, and second start on the green stuff. First time in a little bit on the green stuff, the horse just didn't do running. You need to be forwardly paced on this turf course, and she did nothing but that. She finished 11th by 18.5 lengths, and she just didn't show up as the just over 1 to 2 favorite. What can you do? Back to dirt where she's proven herself. On a wet track, she's 3-0, but she handles it. She hasn't been losing by a lot. If it's gonna show up, wet today, I think the outside poster should be ideal for her, and I think she could, get a good race and win here. 2 back of the Delaware handicap with the mile 3/16 of Delaware. Finished third by 9 1/4 lengths. Idiomatic ran a terrific game performance that day. Even Classic Edition, who was finished second, ran a game performance. This horse was gaining behind some decent horses. I didn't think it was a half bad race there. And then the Obey at Delaware in late May over the mile 16th. She finished second by a nose. She just missed late. She was a little bit wide, but she ran her heart out there. And then the Unique Belly here over the 7 furlongs on the dirt locally. Her last race locally on dirt, she won by 2 lengths, and she really took off clear. Come back here, not the world's toughest race, training well. I think she could get redemption for the last race. I think the 2 horse Linda Loves Gold could win for John Service and Ardono. Most recently off the turf mile 70 allowance race for State Bred, she won by 1 3/4 lengths that day, and she had a dream trip. She only had 3 other rivals, but she stuck. She got the lead, and then she took off clear. And then she went off the turf placed off the turf in a mile 16th allowance race locally, where she finished second by 4.5 lengths. And she was with the pace setter. She kind of hit the wall late, but she ran her heart out that day. Wet track doesn't bother me with her. If there's a horse that could win on the pace, it wouldn't surprise me. Let's choose her in the multis. But to recap my selection for the 6 from Parx, it's the Plum Pretty. Gonna take the number 9 horse here, Morning Matcha. Give kudos to the 2 horse Linda Loves Gold. 9257 Super. 9-2 in your multi race. The seventh event from Parx is one of the most interesting races of the afternoon. It is the Greenwood Cup. It's a grade 3 event going for a $200,000 purse race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 8 horses going the distance of ground of 2,400 meters or a mile and one half on the Parx dirt course. They have to run. I love mile and a half dirt races and long distance races in general. I wish in this country we could card more of them because they're just fun, exciting races to handicap. It's my favorite, one of my favorite divisions. But my top selection, I'm going to take the 4-horse Calibrate. I'm going to go 4-6-3-2 in the superfecta. 4-6-3-2 super top selection of 4-horse Calibrate. This 5-year-old Gallant Bob Distorted Humor. Jamie Ness trans gets Ruben Silvera up in the saddle. The horse's most recent outing, they ran a local allowance race going a mile and a quarter on the 22nd of August, kind of a local prep race for this race. And he finished second by 3/4 length beyond last year's winner. Excuse me, riding with Biden. He just kind of stalked all the way around the race course. He had a decent turn of foot late. He just missed, but, he ran his heart out. Getting an extra 2 furlongs, sitting a little bit closer again. I think he could get the trip to win. 2 back in the Monmouth Cup at Monmouth, a mile and 1/8, 22nd of July. He finished third by 7 1/4 lengths that day, and he was with them early on, dueling on the front end. Proxy and got the job done. His decent horse. This horse, he ran his heart out against some tough horses there. And then the Brooklyn at Belmont over the mile and a half, the 10th of June. He finished second by 2.5 lengths that day. He was a little bit wide. Nobody was catching necks that day, but this horse, he got around the race course well first time with the new connections and first time in the at Belmont. Prior to that, he ran the Isaac Murphy Marathon at Churchill Derby week over the mile and a half, and he finished 5th by 10 lengths that day. Warren gamed it out. This horse was just never really there, kind of was flat, but won the Temperance Hill at Oakland over the mile and a half in April quite nicely by a length from a tracking trip. That was a very good run off of a pretty quick turnaround from the previous race. Back to the mile and a half, trading well. I'm going to give him a shot here. I think the 6-horse here next could win. He's probably going to go to the front, and let's see how far his pace goes. He likes the long distance. He won the Thoroughbred Aftercare marathon race at Keeneland last fall over the mile 5 furlongs. Before that, won an off-the-turf mile and a half Cape Pendleton at Delaware. Came back this year. He needed that race at Churchill off the bench, but came back to win the Brooklyn going away with a 101 buyer, and then put on a show at Saratoga going the mile 3/4 Birdstone. He won by nearly a dozen that day. It was a little bit wide, but he really freaked. He could definitely win here. He's trading well Turfway. Let's give him a shot here on the ticket at 8-5. But to recount my selections for the 7th from Parx, it is the Greenwood Cup. Gonna take the 4-horse here. Calibrate. Give kudos to the 6-horse next. 4-6-3-2 Super. 4-6 in your multi-race. Like I said, the 8th and 9th race, both turf races. We're gonna skip them over. Like I said, I just cannot see them running a turf race with the expected weather we're having, which is gonna be, tell you the truth, I think we might see a 3-horse field or 4-horse field in this turf sprint here, but it's gonna be, I just can't see him running a turf sprint in this weather. Can't even see him run a 9th race in this kind of weather, so we'll skip those races over. I don't want to handicap and just handicap for nothing. If I'm wrong and the weather clears up, I'm wrong. But let's get over to race number 10 now, which is the Parx Dirt Mile. It's going for a $300,000 purse race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 7 horses taking a lap around the Parx main track, 1,600 meters in circumference of the mile trip on the main track. My top selection here, I'm going to take the 2-horse Dr. Ardito. I'm going to go 2-4-3-5 in the superfecta. 2-4-3-5 super, top selection 2-horse Dr. Ardito. This this 5-year-old gelding by Liam's Map. Chad Brown trains. Ira Ortiz Jr. comes in from New York to ride this horse. The horse's most recent appearance came at Saratoga over the Wilson Mile and the Evan Shipman Handicap. Off the little bit of refreshing was good for him. He won by 1 1/4 lengths that day. He had a wide poster. He didn't get out of the gate so clearly. He doesn't have a lot of gate speed, but he sat back early. He swung out wide late, and he went away with it. Coming back around a 2-turn race in the first time in a little bit, he has some forwardly pace, or he has a good stalking pace, which I think should suit him well here today. I think he get around the race course well and get the job done. He also likes a wet track. 2 back in the Commentator at Belmont on mile 16, 29th of May. Probably one of the toughest races of the season. season and one of the best races I thought of the spring at Belmont. He finished fourth by 1 3/4 lengths that day, and he sat mid-pack most of the race. He was a little bit wide, but he was gaining that day. It was a very game performance for him. And then the Westchester at Belmont over the mile in mid-May, finishing fifth by 11 1/4 lengths that day. He didn't get out of the gate so clearly, and he just, it was flat. It was off the 2-month refreshing. He probably needed the race. 2 months prior in the Haynesfield at Aqueduct in February, he won by a head that day, and he was dueling on the front, and he was a little bit wide, but he got the job done there. And then when in mid-January on the mud at Aqueduct going 7/8, winning by a head again, closing it from nowhere. A very, very good run. Coming out in New York, he's training well. This is a logical spot for him. The Forrest Nimitz class could win for Bruce Kravitz and Paco Lopez. Nimitz, that's something. Isn't that something in Yiddish or something like that? I'm not Jewish, but I live here in New York, so of course you have to know a lot of Yiddish to get by. But I have to go look that up. I'm pretty sure it is. Nimitz class, most recently, the horse ran in the Stormcat at Parx, mile 70 on the 21st of August, and he finished second by 3.5 lengths that day, and he just never could get there. He's just kind of flat that day. Again, in the deputy minister, I thought the mile length was just a little bit too long. He finished second by 1/4 lengths there at Laurel, where he had the lead, and then he just kind of hit the wall late. And then the Salvatore mile, he just couldn't catch the winner, who just gamed him that day. But he likes this track. He likes the mile trip. I'm going to give him a shot back to cutting back 70 yards to this race. And also even the 3-horse Mish for Safi Joseph and Tyler Connor. He was on the front end in the Russell Road where he just kind of hit the wall there. But the race at Gulfstream could definitely win 2 back. His 2-turn races are a little subpar at times, but it's not the world's toughest race. He's training well. Let's give him a shot on the ticket. It's a very wide open race to begin this pick 4. Pick 5. But to recap my selection for the 10th from Parx, it's the Parx Dirt Mile. I'm going to take the 2-horse Dr. Ardito, 2-4-3-5 Super, 2-4-3 in your multi-race. Let's get to the 11th race from Parx, which is the Gallant Bob Stakes. It's a Grade 2 event going for a $400,000 purse race for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of 10 horses going 1,200 meters or 6 furlongs on the main track. I'm going to go to the outside gate to the 9-horse here, Rivets. I'm going to go 9-4-7-5 in the superfecta. 9-4-7-5 super, top selection 9-horse Rivet. This 3-year-old colt by Competitive Edge. Steve Aston trains. Tyler Gaffaleone gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came the Robert Hilton Memorial at Charlestown, 7 furlongs on the 25th of August, and he finished 5th by 5 1/4 lengths that day. He was very wide that day, and he just didn't show up. Cutting back to 6 furlongs, more standard kind of 6 furlong race, which he's more used to. He's gonna have to overcome wide poster, but I don't think the wide poster here with his dead rail usually is half bad. I think he'd get the job done and run a good race, and get major redemption for the last one. Prior to that, he ran the Amsterdam Saratoga over the 6.5, and he finished 5th by 21 1/4 lengths that day. And he didn't get out of the gate so clearly, but he just wasn't catching the horses in front, and I don't want to watch the replay, tell you the truth. So I just going off of memory from what I remember of that race, but he ran terrifically that day, but may he rest in peace, the winner. And then prior to that, in the Maxfield at Churchill over the 7, at Ellis over the 7 on the slop, he won by 3 lengths, and the speed was holding up that day. Very good race there. And then he won the Chick Lane before that, and the Bachelor before that on the front end on a sloppy going. Cutting back to 6, like I said, more standard course. He could definitely win at 5-2. I could understand singling him in the pick 4, but I think I kept going back to Damon's Mound also. He won that Robert Hilton race at Charlestown over the 7. He won by 2 lengths that day, and he was with him early on. He dueled, he got the lead, and then he really took off clear. Very strong run. Prior to the Maxfield, he finished 4th by 4 1/4 lengths that day, and he just needed something more that day. And then he had a decent place stepping down in class in allowance race at Churchill. It's taken a little bit of time for him to get going, but he's training well. I'll give him a shot here at 4-1 if there's going to be a horse coming from slightly off the pace to win. But to recount my selection for the 11th from Parx, it's the Gallant Bob. I'm going to take the 9-horse here, who is Rivet. Give kudos to the 4-horse Damon's Mound. Where are we? 9-4-7-5 Super, 9-4 in your multi-race. The co-featured 12th race from Parx. It is the Cotillion Stakes. It's a Grade 1 event going for $1 million purse race for 3-year-old fillies. We have a field of 9 horses going 1,700 meters or a mile 16th here in the Cotillion. I'm going to take the 7-horse Dividing Purpose as top selection, 7-6-3-5 in the superfecta. 7635 Super, top selection, 7 horse, Defining Purpose, 3-year-old filled by Cross Traffic, Kenneth McPeak trains, Brian Hernandez Jr. gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came at Saratoga, mile and a quarter in the Grade 1 Alabama, and he finished third by 5 1/4 lengths that day. Lost all chances the Wednesday before the race when she drew the 10 of 10 hole. What can you do? She just, she left out of the gate to good position. She stalked all the way around the race course, but then she just couldn't stay that extra furlong late, it seemed. I think a mile and 1/8 is probably her preferred trip. Even mile 16th is something she wants to do. Cutting back and trip, she could handle a wet course. I think she could get redemption for that last race. Two back, she ran the Indiana Oaks at Indiana, mile 16th in early July. She won by 1/4 lengths, and off the 2-month refreshing, she stalked all the way around the race course. When she got to the front and she quickened up, that was a very good race for her there. And then a wide trip in the Kentucky Oaks cost her. She didn't get out of the gate so clearly, and she just was very flat. And, I thought they were just asking a little bit too much too soon. But prior to that, she won the Ashland at 20-1 at Keeneland over the mile 16th. Winning by a half length, stalking all the way around the race course. That was a very good run. She should have been 20-1 that day. Before that in the Honeybee, she just had a very weird trip there. But she had a decent trip in the Martha Washington where she finished third behind Wet Paint. And then she won the year's end at Oaklawn quite nice over the mile. Coming here, definitely improving since the Oaks. She could win. The 6-horse Just Catherine also for Junior Alvarado could win. Most recent lounge race at Saratoga closing weekend over the mile furlong, she won by 1 3/4 lengths that day, and she was just stalking all the way around the race course. When they got to the front end, she really took off clear with the 92 buyer. Prior to that opening weekend in the Wilton, over the Wilson Mile, she finished second by 1/4 lengths. The winner was a next start winner. This one also was a next start winner. She just didn't get out of the gate so clearly, which cost her there with that weird mile. And then probably one of the best races, along with that commentator that they ran at Belmont during the spring, was this allowance race for the Philly and Mayors on the 16th of June, that Friday. So many horses out of that race: Sunset Louise, Sacred Wish, Just Catherine. A lot of those horses have come out of that race to run terrific races. That's one of those pinpoint races I always go back to at Belmont during the spring. She finished third by 4 3/4 lengths behind those incredible horses. She was a little bit wide, but she kept going there off the bench. And then they just asked a little bit too much soon in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. But since that race at Belmont, she's definitely improved a lot. She could definitely win here on the ticket. Even the 3-horse Pretty Mischievous, again, she won the test by default. I really don't want to go into it, and didn't watch the replay. Watched it live, but the 7 furlong trip is probably what they wanted to cut her back. That was the target ever since they said after the Oaks that one of the summer targets was the test for her. But 7 furlongs, she's a little bit too short for her. I think she wants to go mile 16th like she's getting today, even mile 1/8. 2 back in the mile Acorn at Belmont on Belmont Eve. She won by a head that day, and she closed up into nowhere, a little bit wide, but she got the job done. She closed up from a stupidly wide post to win the Oaks, and then she just kind of was a little bit flat, but she didn't go down without a fight in the Fairgrounds Oak. She could definitely win here today. I think getting back to a preferred trip is something she could do very nicely. But to recap my selection for the 12th from Parx, it's the Cotillion, the Grade 1 $1 million Cotillion. I'm going to take here the 7-horse Defining Purpose, give kudos to the 6-horse Just Catherine, and the 3-horse Pretty Mischievous. 7635 Super, 763 in your multi-race. Let's get to the 13th race now from Parx. Very marathon card. The 13th race, it is the Pennsylvania Derby. It's a Grade 1 event going for $1 million purse, race for 3-year-olds here. Field of 11 horses going the distance of ground of 1,800 meters or a mile and 1/8 on the Parx main track. It seems like the Pennsylvania Derby in the last 10 or 12 years or so, probably last 10 years, has kind of taken over what the Super Derby was from like the mid-90s to the early 2000s, where you saw these great horses come out of it, out of the Derby prep races and Derby Trail to run in the end of the season final 3-year-old race, like the Super Derby at Louisiana Downs, when that kind of fell to the wayside during the recession in the late 2000s. The Pennsylvania Derby kind of picked up the slack, and it was always a good race, but in particularly the last 10 years, you've seen some great horses running in this one. My top selection here, I'm going to go with the 4-horse Magic Tap. I'm going to go 4-5-3-2 in the superfecta. 4-5-3-2 super. Hopefully I don't lose my throat, my voice. My throat's starting to get a little too dry. But my top selection of 4 is Magic Tap. 3 are Colt by Tappet. Steve Afson trains. Entirely halfly owned, gets to mount. The horse's most recent outing came 13th of August at Saratoga, mile 8th in a allowance race, 100,000, and he won by neck that day. And he just stalked all around the race course. He's a little bit wide, but he gamed it out to the wire. That was a very good run. Keep in mind the second place finisher was the next star winner. He is stepping up in class to Grade 1 and stakes quality horse for the first time, but he's definitely run races fast enough that could win against these horses. Also, he's bred for a mile and 8 through and through. Biggest question for him will be, can he handle the very sloppy conditions and the weather today? We'll have to wait and see on the day. 2 back, he ran 30th of June at Ellis, a mile and 8th and optional 100 Claimer, and he finished second by a head that day. He just kind of stalked all the way around the race course. He had lead. He got caught late, but he ran his heart out that day. You know, I thought he gamed into the wire. And then early June at Churchill, mile 16th in the main special weight, facing all the horses there. He broke his mane by 6 lengths that day. He had a 3/4 breather, which really got him the race, going away with it. A very good run. And then he ran a Keel in mid-April, 6 furlongs on the main special weight. He finished 6 by 12 1/4 lengths that day. He was just wide, and he just needed the race for the experience. But he's been training well at Saratoga since the last race. I know he's stepping up in class, but he's definitely run races fast enough to win. I'm going to use him on the ticket. The 5-horse Scotland could win also. You know, in the Travers, he just kind of hit the wall that day, asking a little bit too much too soon over the mile and a quarter. He finished 6 by 10 1/4 lengths. You know, just, you know, like I said, just a little bit too much too soon. Prior to then, the Curlin over the mile and 8th at Saratoga in July, he won by 1 3/4 lengths that day, or excuse me, 3 1/4 lengths that day, and he could have won by more, but he really paced home decently there. And then he won optional 100 at Churchill in early June, quite nicely, closing up from nowhere. Another horse that's taking a little bit of time to get going, but he's definitely improved a lot. He's run races fast enough to win. I'll use him here at 6-1. And also, you know, the 3-horse Saudi Crown, I was at Belmont on Dwyer Day. That was probably one of the most impressive races I've seen this year in person. With him and Fort Bragg, you know, dueling to the wire. He just missed at the wire in the head bob. I need him for the pick 4, by the way. But we'll talk about that another day. But, you know, he just kind of stalked all the way. You know, he was setting the pace, flying on the front, and 108 and 4 3/4. He got caught at the wire by Fort Bragg, who was gaming it out late. He ran his heart out that day. He ran his heart out of the Jim Dandy before that, going to the mile and 8th, where he finished second by nose again. Forte closed up from nowhere. This horse was drifting that day, but, you know, he ran his heart out there. You know, the race at Churchill in May could win here. Even the debut could win here. You know, I like him a lot. You know, he's definitely been improving. You know, watch out for him here at 7-2 in this very nice Pennsylvania Derby. But to recap my selection for the featured 13th race now from Parx, it's the Grade $1 million Pennsylvania Derby. Going to take the 4-horse Magic Tap, give kudos to the 5-horse Scotland and the 3-horse Saudi Crown, 4-5-3-2 Super, 4-5-3 in your multi-race. So good luck to all, and please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5. Good luck, everybody.